liberty, and justice for all. Dr. Sheboy?
Yeah, so we have a couple abbreviated reports tonight just because we're under a timeline to meet with council. But just before I give my report, I just would ask if as our community, our school community, we could just take a moment of silence to recognize a loss of a couple of former family members of the district. Recently, the district learned of the passing of Joanne Cox, who was a longtime physical education teacher in district, very well respected woman coach, just longtime advocate for our children. And Joanne passed recently, as well as Charlie Littlejohn. Charlie is a Marine Corps veteran who served greatly our district in the custodial buildings and grounds office. It was even after he retired, was a continual presence in our schools at the athletic events. And just so we could take a moment to pause and remember those two individuals who were members of our district family. Thank you. I just have two things to go through today. Again, we're just under a bit of a timeline because of a need to meet with council. But so I just want to remind the board that tonight we will be asking the board to approve high-risk sports for the spring season. The only high-risk sports that is for the season is boys lacrosse. I think girls lacrosse is just as high risk, but the state has defined that, and it's because of the checking that they do. So I'll ask the board to do that. Our testing protocol has been going well, though we have had some positives in some of our sports. We've had as many positives in non-high risk as we have in high risk. So we're pretty confident in what we've put in place, and it's giving our student athletes an opportunity. And then just the second thing is just to let the board know, if you weren't aware already, that our reopening committee has been meeting for the past 3 weeks, it is, Dr. Taylor, to begin planning for September. We've have a good group of people. It's a pretty large group, and we are going through, without guidance from the state yet, we are going through a lot of information. We're evaluating how we performed this year in our reopening, and we're anticipating a much smoother reopening as some of the guidelines are changing from the DOH and the CDC. So those are my two things to report on tonight as well.
And I do want to say that I feel that the reopening committee under yours and Dr. Teodor's direction is really eye-opening, and everyone's touching on all very important parts of it. So I think it's going to be a very successful group of people working together to get things done right. So thank you. Okay, Ms. Sedera?
Okay. After the last business meeting, we received a question about, I want to say it's from the 21-22 budget questions from Miss Kathy Dago. So I want to take a couple minutes just to read the question that she asked and answer those questions. And there's about 3 questions. The first question was, how much does it cost to educate each child per year? The data reported in the 2018-19 Fiscal Accountability Summary, which is based on the 2017-18 due to data lagged a year, shows that general education students, it was $13,501 per student. Special education was $41,196 per student. Please keep in mind that this is based solely on instructional cost. The next question was, how much does West Point and Garrison pay our district per child? West Point pays based on a band of students. For 2021, the first 3 bands pay the same amount, $5,150,278, and the band numbers are as follows. 150 to 169 is the first band. The second band is 170 students to 189, and the third band is 190 to 209 students. Garrison, on the other hand, pays approximately $18,000 per student, and the tuition is based on the non-resident tuition rate, which is set by the state of New York. The last question, how much of the cost of each child goes for teaching as opposed to administer? The district builds a revenue budget based on the following estimated revenues. The local non-property tax, which consists of tuition, BOCES refunds, miscellaneous revenues, state aid, that's monies received from the state, federal sources, which is West Point tuition and impact aid, and property taxes, which is your tax levy. After we have a revenue budget, we then build an expenditure budget, which is based on administrative, capital, and program. Costs are not based on teaching versus administration. We don't break down the cost of educating students that way, and that the entire budget, which includes everything, has those components. Please note that all budget presentations and the budget statement are located in the budget information section under the business and finance section on the Highland Falls Fort Montgomery Central School District website. Thank you, Ms. Lawless.
Thank you very much, and thank you for that detailed response. Dr. Theodore?
Thank you. I wanted to just talk a little bit about the reopening committee. We had our second full meeting on Tuesday, and as Dr. Shiboy said, it's quite a large committee. I think we have 25 people with representatives from across the district there, teachers, representatives, the president of the Town of Highlands Teachers Association, one of the co-presidents rather, parents. So we have a really great cross-section of representatives on that committee. And we spent quite a bit of time talking about virtual options, should we need them come September. And we spent about half of the meeting talking about that in particular, and looking at the different options, talking about some of the hurdles that we currently have in place with our program, and things that we've done and what we might be able to do differently. So I felt that it was a very productive conversation. And based on that, moving forward, Dr. Shiboy and I met to talk about some of the options that we discussed at the meeting, and we'll be expanding that conversation to even include BOCES. And we started those conversations at our county level discussions as well, to see what other school districts are doing and what BOCES might offer. So more to come on that. Our next meeting is April 20th. So I'm excited about continuing that conversation, and we're going to take a look at, I think, health and safety and last year's plan as well, and how that can be modified. And once we have a better handle, once the committee's gone through that report or that plan from last year, we'll make the modifications, and then we'll be able to post the plan for the 21-22 school year. Right now, we are still very much in the discussion stage. The other thing I wanted to mention is that the New York State Education Department had submitted a waiver request to the U.S. Department of Education about assessment, and that waiver was denied. So at this point, we will be administering the first section of the 3-8 math and ELA assessment, the written part of the 4th and 8th grade science assessment, and 4 regions will be administered: the ELA, Algebra 1, Earth Science, and Living Environments regions. So that's what I have.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. And around 10 minutes ago, we got several questions. We received several questions on the reopening email that most of those will be answered by our administrators, like we said at the last meeting. But there is one that was directed to the board this is from Mrs. Dyaroff, Kristen Dyaroff. I believe Ms. Lawless was quoted in the town paper as planning to have a meeting with Scoofus about our $1 million federal award versus the $60 million KJ is to receive, with the intent on asking him to explain the large financial discrepancy and to ask him to advocate for a higher allotted amount to our district. Did that meeting occur? If so, what was the outcome? If the outcome was not satisfactory, what can we parents do to help? So we did meet with all of our elected officials, including James's office. But since then, as we know, our New York State budget has come out. We received, and Ms. Sedera is going to talk about that shortly in our updated budget plan. We were successful. James was successful in getting us some pre-K money, which is very exciting, and we're very thankful for that. which will help us. And I believe, Frank, if I'm not mistaken, it's recurring funds, correct?
It is, and it's anticipated that it will increase as well.
Okay, so that's great news. And also, he and his advocates were able to work to ensure our, let me make sure I say it right, our foundation aid payment also increased. So, and again, how the money is allocated, Mrs. Dyaroff and the rest of the community, we know that it's based on child need, not on per capita. So they know the frustration and the need to change it. But I also and I want Denise to be able to explain it, but I want people to understand in the community that that particular aid that we were talking about, what I call the reopening aid or the pandemic, help with COVID, is based on, we need to apply for that. So it's more like in a grant format, it's not going to be part of our general fund in our budget. So hopefully I've answered that question. We are very thankful for what James and the other elected officials have been able to do for us. But again, we do know that we can't stop. We have to keep on making sure that they understand where we are. So at this time, if I can, and I know that the administrators will respond to the rest of those questions, so thank you for submitting them. And I do ask now to turn it over to Ms. Sedera to give us the updates on our budget. And we as a board decided that we as a district decided that we will not be adopting our budget tonight because we wanted Ms. Sedera to have the opportunity to explain to us what the changes were due to the changes in the New York State funding. And so we will be having a special meeting next Thursday night at 6:00 in order to adopt our budget, since we have obviously a time limit in which we need to do that. So they're all good news. But I thought it was fair to give everybody time instead of us listening and then adopting it right away. So thank you for everybody on the board being able to meet next week for a short time. So go ahead, Ms. Sedera. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Taylor? She's going to share the presentation for me.
Thank you.
Okay. So my last budget presentation was back on March 11th. So here it is now, March 8th, there is a state budget. So I'm going to run through what we've updated. So the proposed budget as of April 8th, 2021 is $34,573,586. That's a budget to budget increase of $1,321,745. So that is a 3.97% increase. 1 month ago, it was.
Denise, can we ask, excuse me, I'm sorry, can you change
Oh, Andrea.
so the people that are watching can see it? Do you know what I mean? The slide, I'm sorry. There we go.
Back one more. Hold on.
One up. Take your time. I just want everyone to be able to see what we're talking about. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
So we had a budget to budget increase of 3.97%. If you recall, last month, it was 3.6%. The only change that this is $125,000 increase to the budget. So I'm going to go through the rest of this slide before I give some explanations and what we've added. So as of today, the proposed tax levy increase is now 0%. The assigned fund balance is also 0%. The estimated tax rate increase is 0 because we're not increasing the tax levy from last year. But I have to remind everybody that can change because I do not have the correct assessments as of today. I will get estimates from Ms. Thalman before I do the budget hearing presentation. So we'll have a little bit better idea. So how did the revenue change from?
So Denise, can I just explain in our terminology that, if your assessment of your house does not, let's say it was 250,000 last year and that assessment does not go up, then your school taxes will not increase. That's what this means. Now, the assessments that are out of the schools boards, the school districts' hands, if they do go up, then your school taxes will go up. But again, from our budget to budget, due to the additional funding and the great financial advice that we received from Dr. Sheboy and Ms. Sidera, we're able to stick with a 0% tax rate. So go ahead, Denise.
Right. And I just do want to comment that we can reduce the tax levy because of the additional foundation aid that was received.
Thank you.
So the increase to the property tax revenue was $1.8 million. We decreased the fund balance from last year by $500,000. And then you can see the revenue budget to budget increase is $1.32 million. And that equals the expenditure increase. Okay, Andrea. So what did we add into the budget for $125,000? Dr. Sheboy and I, we had some long discussions, and we know that it is very important right now that we do need another social worker for our, and I put HFIS, but it's going to be between the elementary school and the intermediate school. So for the social worker, some travel expenses, supplies, and the benefits, that add up to $125,000. It's important because we need to make sure we can get these kids through these difficult times that they're going through right now. And it's important, and that's the bottom line. It's important, and that is why we increased the budget by the $125,000. So I'm going to show you a breakdown of the state aid update. And I'm sorry I didn't update the 2021. It should be 21-22. So if you see from 2021, we had $6.4 million worth of foundation aid. We're slated to get $7.5 million, which is $1.1 million increase. That is such a great hurdle that we have been fighting for the past 6 years, that it's going to save our district. It's going to help us out. But I just want to keep in mind that, because that increase, we do have to make some adjustments, and I'll go through them, like with transportation aid. So the plan for the state is by 23-24, they would like to have foundation aid fully funded. So that will give the districts the ability to do and continue to do the great job that they do to educate our students. You'll see the transportation aid. We had $1.6 million last year. I have budgeted $1.3 million. There's language in the legislation that due to the closing last March, from March to June, that we were going to get a hit of not being receiving any transportation aid. There's language in that will we receive the aid for having West Point Tours on standby up through March 7th. So we're not going to be having such a hit. It's not going to be $500,000. It should be a lot less. So I need to be cautious so that I don't overestimate that transportation aid. High tax aid, that doesn't change from year to year. Building aid, again, that is based on the capital project that we have planned on filing the final cost report on June 30th. BOCES aid, that's expense driven for whatever the programs outside of special ed that we purchase from BOCES. The excess cost, that is for our out of district special needs students. Textbook, software, and library, there was a slight change in those numbers. And in 2021, we had the pandemic adjustment, and that's why that is zero. So you see, we're looking at $1.4 million increase in state aid. So I know people have looked at the state aid runs, and on the bottom of the state aid runs, you're going to see the CRRSA for $973,000 and the American Rescue Plan for $1.7 million. These monies or allocations are not part of state aid. These are going to be handled like a grant. So when we apply for our title grants, there's an FS10 that we have to submit. This is going to be just like the ESSER and the GEARS money. I took a peek at a presentation that I have to sit through a webinar tomorrow with state aid planning, and it looks like the state controller is going to have the districts in New York State account for these monies in the special aid fund, because these monies are not just for 1 year. They're going to go over maybe 2 to 3 years. So it's going to be handled into the special aid fund. So once those monies are approved and expended, then those monies are gone. If anybody has any questions about that or doesn't understand, just please let me know, reach out to me.
So I just want to explain to the public that's listening. So this isn't money that we can put in our general fund or in our budget. We can't put it in there because it's going away. And this would have a major impact on many parts of our budget. So we can't do that. And again, we have to apply. So I can somewhat answer a little bit more of Mrs. Dyer's question about the 60 million. For Curious Joel, there's a lot, and other districts too, whatever they're allotted on those two lines, there's a lot of criteria that has to be met. So if you don't meet the criteria or the need, then you're not going to get the funding. So what we need to do is we need to, as a district, which I know the team is already working on it, put a plan together on what we would use those funds for and get our applications in. We're also not clear on the turnaround time. We know sometimes with grants, it takes a while to get approval and get the turnaround. So we'll continue to work hard to make use of those funds. But in the meantime, this is an absolute positive, great story when it comes to our budget. So I can't thank the team enough for what you've done to get us to this. I also know the importance, as does every person on this call and all of our community, of the need for that social worker. So it's important, and I can't thank everybody enough for working on this budget the way it is and getting us to where we are. So thank you all. So, and again, board, if you have any questions, please reach out to all of us in a group email to Ms. Sedera and Dr. Sheboy so we can get you the answers before next meeting. So thank you, Denise, and thank you everyone else on the phone. Here's the dates again with the adoption of the budget. Like I said, it'll be next April 15th at a 6 p.m. meeting, and the very next day, Denise will turn around the property tax report card. Please remind anyone who's interested in running for a Board of Education seat that the petitions have to be in by 5 p.m. on April 21st. May 4th, the budget will be available in hard copy, and May 6th is our public budget hearing, and May 10th, the notices will be mailed, maybe even a little bit before then due to our snail mail situation with mail right now, and then our annual budget vote and school board election vote on May 18th. So go ahead, Dr. Sheboy.
I want to clarify one of the dates. Marissa, if you're on the call, I think petitions are due on the 19th.
I'm sorry? No, the petitions are due the 21st because we have a meeting the next day. Yep.
The next day, we're going to pull the names where they fall on the ballots on the 22nd before the board meeting.
Okay.
Yes.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
And then remind everybody again, if we can, when is the, if you wanted to register to vote in person, it'll be on, when is that date?
May 1st at the library from 10 a.m. till 2 p.m.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Okay. And more to follow on the whole budget vote process and any changes. We're still getting updates on that. So, okay. And so thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And now if we could go on to our agenda. Poor Ms. Sedera, it's back on you again.
No, it's all good. Okay, so the first item is to approve high-risk spring sports. Be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby approves participation for grades 9 through 12 and 7th and 8th grade students who qualify through the athletic placement process in the following higher-risk spring sports subjects to strict adherence to the guidelines and protocols established by state and local health authorities, as well as the rules of Section 9 of the New York State Public High School Athletic Association, varsity boys lacrosse, and be it further resolved that the board hereby directs the superintendent to arrange for COVID-19 testing of student athletes and coaches as a condition of participation in the above referenced high-risk spring sport.
Motion.
Motion?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
One quick question.
Yes.
Is the spectator rule the same this go around as it was the last season?
As of now, Aaron, it is. We have not received any other real guidelines. We're still anticipating that it is home spectators only. It really has to do with our capacity, to be honest with you. But we're looking closely at it. We have some events that, if Section 9 is requiring that if we're going to host a culminating event, that we have to, I apologize, that we have to allow for visitor spectators as well as home spectators. And we're trying to figure out if there's a way to operationalize that. But as of now, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye. Yes.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, our consent agenda.
Use of the consent agenda permits the Board of Education to make a more effective use of its time by adopting a single motion to cover those relatively routine matters which are included. Any member of the board who wishes to discuss individually a particular piece of business on the consent agenda may so indicate, and that item will be considered and voted on separately, thus preserving the right of all board members to be heard on any issue. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following consent agenda as submitted by the Superintendent of Schools, number 1 through 28.
So moved.
Motion.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and I have a second. Any questions? All in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And there are two things I'd just like to make a very quick comment on. While I want to congratulate Ms. Sadara, I'm sorry, God, Dr. Theodore on her retirement. We will miss you tremendously and we look forward to celebrating it in the months to come. And Mrs. Doyle has worked in our district for many, many years and been a great support for our students for many years. And we wish her the best on her retirement as well. And we look forward to celebrating her in the near future as well. So very quickly, before we go into executive session, we have our attorney on the phone, but I'm going to put her on the spot. Do you think you can confirm for us when the petitions are due? Because it is usually for years and years been a Monday. Did it change this year?
No, it is April 19th at 5 p.m.
Okay, so
apologize.
we need to get that corrected
Okay.
and out there as soon as possible to the
Yes.
people that picked up petitions that have not yet handed them in. Also on our website, and if Mrs. Pitt wouldn't mind putting that in the paper, that would be huge. Okay, thank you for clearing that up for us. Okay. So thank you everyone for participating tonight, and be it resolved that the Board of Education recesses into executive session for the purpose of discussing collective negotiations under the Taylor Law with the Town of Highlands Teachers Association and to discuss the employment history of a particular individual. The board will not return to open session to take action.
So
Motion.
moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you, everybody. Have a good night.